Oh my gosh. Excuse me. I was filming a video. You rudely interrupted, so this is what you get. Hey guys, it's Sarah. I wanted to take the time today to tell you a story about something that happened during my most recent job search experience, and something I hope that you can take from it is how important it is to trust your gut during the job search experience. I don't think you realize sometimes just how accurate your intuition can be about something, and this moment and this experience I'm about to tell you definitely taught me that lesson. The end of 2017 to the beginning of 2018, I was in full-fledged job hunt mode. Spoiler alert, I did find a great job and I'm in it right now and I'm very happy with it. However, during this experience, I had two job opportunities at the same time. Right before Christmas time, one job opportunity actually invited me in to do an interview. It was just a general marketing assistant job. I felt more than qualified for all the expectations or all the requirements for it. So when they sent me an email asking me to come in, I was like, great. I'd love to, let's do this. I'm not gonna go into too many details about this interview, but overall it just felt very impersonal. And I know that good interviews are really supposed to be more of a conversation rather than just question, answer, question, answer. But this one just felt super impersonal because she was literally just reading down this list of just really generic questions, and I don't feel like she really got a good feeling of who I am as a worker and as a marketing professional. I felt okay about it and then went on my way. And then right around the first of the year, they sent me an email and they said they wanted me to come in. They weren't having me come in for a second interview for another 2 or 3 weeks. So it was a pretty big gap. However, I wasn't too surprised because literally the stack of resumes they were going through during my first interview was like this thick, and that was only that day. And they had given me 3 days of options to come in. So I almost felt like they were just bringing in anyone that had applied. Right before I went in for the second interview, I actually had the phone interview and the in-person interview for the job that I ended up getting. Those interviews both felt great. Those were both just conversations. I was just very, very, very excited for this position. I don't know what it was, but something inside me was really just like, I don't know if I really want this job anymore. Like, this other one went so well. I feel like that's how things should have gone for the first interview of it. However, I wasn't going to hear back from job B, the one that I currently have, until the day after the second interview for job A. I hope you can follow along with both of these jobs, but I didn't want to name the company of the first one because I don't feel comfortable doing that. But then after talking to my parents and my friends, they were just like, you know what, you should just go. And I was like, okay, I'll go to the second interview. If there's anything that I'm unsure about, I'm just gonna ask questions and see if we can get on the same page. Now that I think about it, I don't think I prepared at all for this second interview because I didn't really want it anymore. But like I said, I couldn't just give up on this one and put all my eggs in one basket. So I show up to this job interview. The woman that originally interviewed me walked up to me, she said hi, she was super friendly, and said, now I'm just gonna warn you, there's gonna be some big personalities in that room today. And I was like, cool, whatever, I can handle it. I was first thinking like, all right, these are gonna be some really outgoing people, really loud. That's when I think when someone says someone has a big personality, right? So I walk in and it's just her, me, and then one person walks in. He's an okay guy. He was very, very to the point with his questions. He did frequently cut me off with my answers to ask another question, so hardly any of my thought processes or my answers were really fully developed by the time he wanted to move on to a different question. Often me thinking and feeling like I didn't fully answer his questions. And then 2 other people walked in. One guy never spoke the entire time. One man came in and he sat right next to me and he shook my hand, introduced himself. I'm assuming he was top dog because he took control of the room from then on. Hardly anyone else spoke the entire time, including myself, to be very honest, because he walked in, he sat down, and then he just started grilling me with questions. It almost sounded like some of the questions were condescending. Ugh, I'm sorry, I get really mad when I think about this. So he was asking me questions, what I want to do, what are my goals, why am I here? Then he says, it sounds like you're not really sure who you are right now. And I'm like, I am in my 20s and I'm kind of figuring myself out like any other 20-something-year-old. As a person, I know who I am. As a job, of course I'm figuring that out. That's why I'm here getting a job. I didn't say everything exactly like that, didn't really say that last part, but this is just what's going on in my head. And then he says, oh yeah, you're only what, 24 or so? Yeah, you should, that's fine, that's normal. And I'm like, okay, so why did you even say that as if it was a bad thing? to begin with. And then he asks a few more questions, pretty much cuts me off every single time that I try and answer any of his questions. And then he turns to me and says, "So how do you deal with men?" And I literally just turn to him and I say, "Can you be more specific?" And he says, "You know, in my many years in business, I've noticed that women have many different idiosyncrasies than men when it comes to working in the office together. So I was just wondering, how do you handle men, such as myself, who, as the stereotype goes, middle-aged white men who have large egos? How do you handle us?" I'm just, oh my god. This was the moment that my gut was trying to tell me, you don't want this job. And at this point forward, I didn't give a shit. I really, really, really wish I had either told him off or just stood up and walked out. But in that moment, I was like, okay, you need to be professional, whatever. And so I answered his question and I said, well, I have worked with some men who do have large personalities, but like women, it depends on what type of communicator you are, as well as the man or woman, and you just have to learn their communication styles and how to work with them that way, whether it is a man or a woman. So I just essentially tried to put women in my answer as many times as possible and make it about communication. But he was just like, yep, okay. And he just kept calling himself a middle-aged white man with an ego, as if it was okay to be a jackass. I'm swearing a lot more than I thought I would in this video. We finished up the interview. There weren't too many questions after that. I don't even remember what some of the questions were after that, except one, the first guy that came in made a point to say, this is more than a 9 to 5. You can't run a side business when you do this. Like, that's just not possible. And so in my head, I'm like, okay, this entire interview I've told you about how blogging is important to me and it's still going to be a part of my life outside of the 9 to 5, and I can make that happen because I've made it happen before, and you're pretty much telling me to sell my soul to work for you? No thank you. Walked out and just got on my phone and started yelling at anyone that I could call about how awful it was and how much I don't want this job. And so the next day was the day I was hearing back from the job that I wanted, the job I currently have. This awful job actually ended up calling me first that day. I didn't even send a thank you. I didn't do anything that you were really supposed to do after an interview. I just walked out and didn't have an intention of communicating with them ever again. But I picked up the phone thinking it was the job I wanted, and then they introduced themselves as the company I didn't want, asking me to come in one more time to meet with the woman that first interviewed me. It sounded like they were going to offer me the job. And without hesitation, I said, please let her know that I'd like to rescind my resume from this job opportunity, and thank you. And hung up. And that's it. Never heard from them again. About an hour later, heard from the other job, accepted the offer, and here I am. Needless to say, my gut was telling me something was up with this job and it wasn't right for me. And sure enough, it was led by a bunch of sexist, egotistical pigs. And unfortunately, those people do still exist in this world. To all the women out there, please don't stand for it. It's not worth a job. You can find good jobs anywhere else. The whole thing that baffles me is that there was a woman sitting next to me this whole time, saying nothing, as if it was normal and as if it was okay, because you know what? It probably was normal to experience something like that, or for him to ask a question like that. If you're a guy, you might think this isn't a big deal, but if you're a guy, you also probably wouldn't ever be asked, how do you deal with women? Whatever, whoever ended up getting that job, have mercy on their soul, because I will never ever consider working for that company, and I will never recommend anyone to work for that company while those men still exist in there. Trust your gut with these types of experience. No job is worth feeling less than or feeling uncomfortable, and odds are if you're not feeling good during the interview stage and you don't have a good feeling about it, then the job itself probably isn't going to be the best experience. I don't think any job is worth that. Thank you for listening to my story and somewhat rant. I just really wanted people to know that this stuff exists and that you shouldn't put up with it. If you've ever gone through a job interview or a job search process where you've had a gut feeling and it came true, hopefully before you took the job, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this and your experience as well. Thank you so much. Bye guys.